Oke, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thanks God that today we can meet again in the online lecturing. So, starting our lecture today, let's we recite together Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my student, this is the second meeting, so that I would like to lecture and share with you in English. As Prof. Didian explained in the first meeting last week, our subject is about the interdisciplinary approach in the history education, right? So allow me to share my screen. Okay, this is our subject. So remember, please also to every student, to each student, to have the title related to, as JSU, your title is related to your undergraduate thesis. Okay, so maybe you have the idea, you have the planning, you want to write what the title your undergraduate thesis candidate. Okay, so in order this subject will assist you in analyzing, in explaining what interesting for you related to the topic. Okay, so maybe because you are the senior student, right? So you must have the title. What I want to write the undergraduate thesis, the skripsi, you know. I think because you are the senior student, you must have the title, the topic of the skripsi, the undergraduate thesis. Okay. Okay, let's continue about this topic. So, why this subject is about the interdisciplinary approach in history or in history education? Because history education is discipline just concerned in uniqueness matters, just in particular matters, not in general. Because of that, study about history is study about the uniqueness, study about the particular event, not in general event. Meanwhile, we study the knowledge, the science, including history, not only for uniqueness and particular matters, but we want also to know in general, knowing in pattern, knowing in the phenomenon, knowing that one event is related to other event, so that we can make the generalization. So I think it is the important thing why needed for the interdisciplinary approach in study of history, including also study of history education. So the characteristic of history science or history education is discipline, is uniqueness. So the event is unique, the event is particular, not general. For example, Indonesian independence in 1945. I think it is the particular event, uniqueness event, just in Indonesian history, not in other places. So really, actually, that event in history is uniqueness, like individual, like man or woman as personal. It is uniqueness, different between one individual and other. It is also the characteristic of history and history education as a discipline. Okay. And the terminology for the knowledge or science related to the specific event or particular event, namely ideographic. Ideographic is the knowledge, the science related to the particular event, concern with individual, concern with uniqueness. Meanwhile, a normative, different with ideographic, concern with the general law, concern with the generalization, concern with what the phenomenon. As we know, the phenomenon is general, meanwhile the particular is specifically event. So in this context, ideography related to the history, meanwhile a normative related to the what we call now as the social sciences. Social sciences is the discipline that searching about the general phenomenon, about the social law or law of event, generalization, or not uniqueness or not particularity. Okay. So I think it is the important why when we study of history and also history education should be assisted by the science who concern with normative matters. Okay. Okay. History as the discipline, as the science, of course, in explaining about the event, about the phenomenon and whatever related to the history should based on the historical fact. History should be related to the fact, historical fact, evidence, and so on and so forth. The problem is how if we study of history and the evidence, the fact is early, or there is no evidence, there are no history fact related to the maybe the period, the time and so on and so forth. In this context, history as discipline should be assisted also not only by the social scientists, but also what we called as the auxiliary science for history. Auxiliary science. For example, if we want to understand and know more about the, for example, the period of prehistory or the period, the old history in which there is no evidence related to document. Of course, to understand, to explain about the old history, prehistory, we should be assisted by auxiliary sciences. In this context is such as anthropology, archaeology, epigraphy, geology, philology, and so on and so forth. For example, in the old time, old history, particularly in Indonesian history, in the time of prehistory, we know the concept, for example, about the hunting, hunting, and then food gathering, and then food producing. I think the concept about the hunting, food gathering, and food producing is the concept from anthropology, in which there is no historical fact, no evidence related to the old history. Meanwhile, based on the anthropologist research, not only in Indonesia, but also in other area in the world, particularly for the primitive people or primitive ethnic, for example, in Africa, in Latin America, and so on. There's the basis, or there's the step for the what we call people in the prehistory should be firstly hunting, and then they also doing about the food gathering, and finally food producing. So it is the concept from anthropology, including also, for example, we know about the era of old stone, middle stone, new stone, okay? Zaman batu tua, zaman batu tengah, zaman batu muda. It is also assisted or auxiliary science from, for example, geology, archaeology, and so on and so forth. So sorry, it is noise because there's the renovation my my room. Okay, so beside the social sciences, there's also the auxiliary science for history, anthropology, archaeology, in particularly for explaining about the old history, sejarah kuno, you know. For example, in Indonesia, before Indonesian society impacted by the Hindu and Buddha civilization in 5th century, in order we can understand and know about the life and what really happened in that time, we should be assisted from the auxiliary science for history, particularly for anthropology, archaeology, ethnography, geology, and so on. Meanwhile, for the period of history in which there are the available about the document, about the monument, about the historical facts, in this context, when the historian or history educator conducted about the research in history, heuristic, the critique, the analysis, and finally the historiography, in order we not only focus on the particular event or specific event, we should be assisted by the social sciences. In the context is sociology, for example, political science, economy, geography, law, communication, and so on and so forth. So I think interdisciplinary approach in history and history education should be understood in the context that history is concerning about the particular event or uniqueness event. Meanwhile, social sciences can be assisted the history science in order can make the generalization, for example, can make the law covering model, and make the what is really happened in Indonesia, for example, it is also occur or happen in other areas. For example, the Indonesian Revolution in 1945. Okay, Indonesian Revolution is uniqueness for the history of Indonesia, but we can we can make the comparison with other revolution in the world. Vietnamese Revolution, for example, Algiers Revolution, and others, so that we can make the generalization. We can make the what really happened in Indonesian Revolution is similar with other revolution in the world, so that we can finding out about the pattern, trend, you know, pola-pola, trend, kecenderungan, and so on and so forth. So I think social sciences in this context can assisting the history discipline to find out that the study of history is not only concerned about uniqueness, but also can making the generalization. can matching the what really happened in Indonesian context, for example, also can happen in other area so with different place and different time. Okay? So I think it is the essence, and it is important thing about why the social sciences, particularly, can assisting the history discipline, particularly for the modern history, in which the historical fact and evidence were available to be analyzed and to be explaining in order we can make the narrative in the general matters, not in specific or particular matters. Okay, so sorry for noise or crowded situation. I think it is my lecture, just 5-10 minutes. Maybe any comment or any question from the representative female student or the representative of male student related to my lecture today, please. Any question or any comment before we will switch or move this lecture from Zoom meeting to WhatsApp group, because I would like to see also your brief comment related to my lecture today. Any comment or any question from the representative of female student or representative of male student, please? It is enough. Hopefully, all of you understand what I was talking about. Susan, you just smile. Hopefully, you can understand, because it is the English with the Subang style, okay, Sundani style. Thank you very much. If you are not asking to me because this is English with the Sundani style, okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my student, we will switch or move our lecture from the Zoom meeting to WhatsApp group. I would like to see your brief comment related to my lecture today. Of course, when you make the brief comment, please you make in the Bahasa Indonesia, is okay. And in English also okay, good. But in the Bahasa Indonesia is also okay. In Sundanese language also okay. In Malay language it is all. It is will become my characteristic, my style in lecturing the student, the history education student. Okay, remember also please you what is list or checklist in your attending in the Zoom meeting, because the head of class also will identify who will attend, who were attending in this Zoom meeting. Thank you very much. Let's be ending our lecture today by reciting together Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So sorry for unconvenient condition, crowded and noise situation, because that's the renovation my room. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you in the next week. I would like to lecture you in Malay language. Okay. Bye bye.